this year. I'm Sandra Alcosser. I edit Poetry International, and I'm coming to you from the Bitterroot Mountains of Montana. I'm here with poet, friend, and colleague Blas Falconer, joins us from Los Angeles. Hi, Blas.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you.
Blas served as the judge for this year's Poetry International Prize. He's the author of 3 poetry collections, including beautiful and mysterious Forgive the Body This Failure, and editor of 2 essay collections, the other Latin at Writing Singular Identity and Mentor and Muse, Essays from Poets to Poets. He's a poetry editor for the Los Angeles Review and Mentor and Muse online. So, you're here, Blas. Could you speak a little bit about your experience of judging this year's Poetry International Prize?
Sure, I'd be happy to, of course. It was a great experience. Just some of the kind of logistics I think people might want to hear about. I received about 15 finalists for the prize, poems, and I went through those and I selected the winner from those finalists. My process might be different from other people's processes, but people might be curious to learn how I selected what I selected. What I did was, after receiving the 15 submissions, I just decided to read them each day. I would start my day reading through them, and then I tried to pay attention to those poems that stuck with me throughout the day. So, while I was walking the dog, or whatever I was doing that day, eating an apple, falling asleep at night, which poems continued to stay with me, and I asked myself why. And I did that each day, and for about a week, and I chose the winner from the poem. The winner was the poem that really resonated with me the most, and that was the poem "The Opposite of Poetry." Here I wrote a little something about the poem that you guys asked for, which I guess I could read right now. Reading through the poems on the long list, I kept returning to the opposite of poetry, a poem rich with irony. This meditation on grief considers how we carry our suffering alone. A broken cup, still a cup despite everything. I was particularly taken with the poem's control of the line, which seemed to magnify the moment when the one who is grieving remains composed even as she is breaking. So that was my kind of description of the poem and my reasoning for picking it, which I'd love to share the poem with people if we can move on to that. Yeah. So the opposite of poetry. They've been telling her over and again to speak about it. If not to them, well, then to someone, no one even. Get it into words. That old saying about how a mountain can only be moved one little stone at a time. After all, we say flower to hold this writhing into color. I say nothing as she invites me into a room strewn with them, as she shuts the door quick against the wind, moves off to make tea. Nothing as a minute later, I hear a cup shatter across the kitchen floor, as I hear then a door open, close. Hear what sounds like someone scream once wildly into the storm. Nothing, still as storm, becomes a stillness as she comes in again, takes the dustpan from me, as she wraps each piece one by one in tissue, places them in the bin. Still a cup, despite everything. We sit for a long while, her and me, not moving, each word rolled smoother than any stone in my mouth. Her grief like no flower in this world. Don't worry, dear, she says when I later pick up my coat to leave. I'll manage. For every word there is, I know, another. For every sentence, at least one that reads only no, 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 no. So this is Patrick Errington, his poem, the 2020 Poetry International Prize. And, I picked it for so many reasons. I picked it for its irony and its repetition and its surprise, but also I really appreciated the way that it approached the subject of grief, not only addressing or expressing what it's like to experience grief, but also how we might try and contain it or hide it, show restraint, not share it with others, and why we might not do that. And then, of course, there's also in this poem the how we feel compelled to comfort those who are feeling grief. So there were all these different layers that I think Patrick really got to, different layers of grief that Patrick, and issues surrounding grief that Patrick got to that really impressed me and stayed with me. Here's a bio of Patrick James Errington. His poems appear in journals and anthologies like Poetry Review, Best New Poets, Oxford Poetry, the Iowa Review, Boston Review, and the Cincinnati Review, as well as in 2 chapbooks, Glean and Field Studies. Patrick was the recipient of the 2020 Callan Gordon Award from the Scottish Book Trust, and individual poems have won or been commended for, among others, the Plough, the London Magazine, the Wigtown, and the National poetry competitions. Originally from Alberta, Canada, Patrick now lives in Scotland, where he is teaching and a research fellow at the University of Edinburgh.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for selecting Patrick. It's not a surprise because what I said about your poetry, the beauty and the mystery of you and the way that you carefully work the visible side of a piece of fabric and then the underside in your poems. Patrick, I believe, does the same thing. And coming to know him has been an absolute delight. I feel lucky. In some cases, prize winners really become part of the Poetry International family. And we have a number of things coming from Patrick in the PI Online, as well as we're featuring his in issue 27, PI, the celebration of the last 25 years. We'll have 3 of his poems there, this one, and then we'll have 2 others. But also he has done the translation from the French of Tabucchi, who we're featuring in PI Online. And he's also done something, just in talking to him, I would discover things that, oh, would you write about this? Or, oh, let me see that. And so he had, after Derek Walcott retired, he did a residency up in Alberta, Canada. Though it seemed fetched to imagine Derek Walcott there because it's not exactly San Lucia, it's a cold place. But he did, and Patrick was in his class, and so he has done a reminiscence for PI Online. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Sounds great.
So I'm so glad you were the judge. you made it possible for us to extend our PI family. So,
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to share the poet work person I picked for the most recent Poetry International Cavafy Poetry Prize, and that is Heather Derr-Smith. Our editorial board provides the long list, and then I go in and pick things. And I seem to have a tendency to want to pick more than one poem. And so I actually selected 3 poems for Derr-Smith's Disaster series for this most recent Cavafy Prize. And they'll appear along with Patrick's poems in Poetry International issue 27 that'll be forthcoming this year. Heather is a graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop and a poet with 4 works, including Thrust, the winner of Renitsky's at Persia Books, and she's the managing director of a nonprofit supporting writers in conflict zones and post-conflict recovery zones. So I'm going to read a very short poem of the 3 poems that I selected of hers.
Great.
To have comes from haven, harbor, anchorage, port, place of rest or refuge, sanctuary. The boat have lived if he could have. Heaven to him meant some further horizon, a border to cross upright on his own 2 feet, not bullet, not fallen. It would have been shore he stepped upon, a leap boat to land, a promise. We are the ones to greet him, bringing blankets and bread. We alone, we a shelter. But all we could have held is lost. We, this nation, we a gun.
It's powerful.
What I liked about this, and she shared the whole disaster series with me, and she's actually gone on to have, she has another book coming out and then has another book accepted after that. But I like this, the way, the prismatic way that she came to the topic of disaster and kept moving around it and shining light on different parts of it. And then we have just finished reading for the 2020 summer Chapbook, and Marie Baléo was the person. The editorial board again gave me a list, 15 chapbooks, and I selected this one. It said, I wrote about it. Through a thread of the lament, Marie Baléo Submersion speaks lyrically about a young girl's exile from Lebanon, her homeland, and the experience of her restless passage and initiation into a larger world. A full of these poems is forthcoming in Poetry International 28 in 2022. And we've already taken lots of really fine material for that one. We have translations of a poet from Iceland and a poet from Sweden. We will have Blas Falconer's this translation. Blas, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm happy to actually. So over the summer, when I was struggling to write some of my own poems, I came across a reading by Mariano Zaro, who's a poet from Spain. He had just come out with a chapbook called Padre Tierra, and I was just blown away by the poems that I heard and these just kind of lyric outbursts in which he addressed his homeland, northern Spain, the rugged landscape, and his father, who was a farmer. And I immediately purchased the book. I read it when I got here, and I looked him up and I learned that he lived in Los Angeles, actually. And I reached out to him and I let him know how much I liked the book. And I have made this friendship with this person online I'd never met before and started to translate the work. And I, each week I would send him a batch of new translations and he would respond with his feedback. And together we translated the book, and I'm really excited to share them with others. So I appreciate Poetry International showcasing them.
Oh, I'm delighted. I'm delighted that we have them. So I'm really looking forward to Poetry International issue 28 with all of these different folios. And Marie Baléo is another person whose work and person, she's new to me. And I asked her if she will be our Paris correspondent, since she is in Paris. And so she's become Poetry International family as well. And I'm going to read one poem from the forthcoming folio.
I love that.
Slumber. In the mountain lies a village named after Eden. It's there that a tide coalesces in the hour before daybreak, hundreds of men swarming up the path to the mansion, divine punishment, quivering legs and bated breaths. In the house are a 3-year-old, a mother, father. The man in charge of this operation is 26 years old, which, yes, is also young. The man faints on the road to the compound. The practice of massacre has existed since time immemorial. It is a universal tradition, by which I mean anywhere there is humanness, a massacre may occur. In the end, they say, even the dogs were shot. This is a really beautiful chapbook that we have coming out in folio, and we'll be doing individual poems from PI online. And it's also been, it will come out as a full book from another press after the folio appears. So our chapbook reading periods are winter, and we just finished the winter, and then summer from June 1st to September 1st. Marie Baléo is a French writer, poet, and editor, born in 1990. Her books appeared and forthcoming in Passages North, Prism, International, Yamasi, Litro, Tahoma Literary Review, and elsewhere. And she is the editor of Panorama, the Journal of Intelligent Travel. She grew up in Lebanon, and she currently lives in Paris.
Very excited to read that book.
Yes. Both of them, I think, are very, very good. The Disaster series, I think, is coming out, and I think that's the one book that's been taken also of Heather Derr-Smith.
Oh, right.
So, thank you for joining me from the part of the world where the birds still sing. Here, I just watch them. They find a little berry. They hunt all day and they find a little berry, but no one's singing right now. So it's just more and more snow.
I'm sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm, of course, in a very different environment. It's sunny and maybe 85 degrees here in Los Angeles. So, but I do miss the snow. So it must be beautiful to look out your window and see it as well.
Very calming. Very, very calm.
So.
Yeah.